Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1024 just came out, and it looks like we just got confirmation that Shimotsuki Ushimaru is in fact Zoro's father. Of course, we didn't get verbal confirmation of this, but just seeing the character in the flesh, not just as a silhouette, not just as a vague sort of flashback or memory of another character, it does seem like Shimotsuki Ushimaru is Zoro's father. Am I wrong? I have a big theory coming out on the character coming out this Tuesday. I think it is a very, very interesting theory, and I do think I put together a few pieces that other people are missing. So look out for that. It's not just that he's Zoro's father, it's definitely a lot more than that. So watch out for next Tuesday's video. Also, besides that, I should mention again, I have launched a second channel. It's on movie and TV analysis. So if you enjoy my style of analysis, if you want to see me tackle other subjects, check out the channel in the link in the description below. A new video is coming out tomorrow. So besides all that, let's talk about One Piece chapter 1024. So the beginning of the chapter is actually very interesting to me because it made a plot point that was happening earlier, which was Orochi starting those fires, finally click for me. At least I think I have a good idea of why Oda started that plot point in the first place. It seems like the goal was that Oda wanted all of the characters that were previously spread out throughout Onigashima, he wants them back into one place. He wants them all in the live floor. That is the real purpose of the fire as far as I can tell. It's just a plot reason to get all of the main characters back into the center of Onigashima, back into the live floor. So that's at least my thought at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any other real reason. That's at least what seemed to have been happening throughout the beginning of the chapter, with every Straw Hat calling each other, saying, hey, wherever you are, just get back to the middle, get back to the middle, get back to the middle. It seems very clear to me that Oda wants them all back in the middle, back in one spot for some reason, and we obviously don't know what that is yet. Maybe to see Luffy get defeated by Kaido, but I won't get into that. I just think that it's interesting that Oda is trying to group everyone together again. So something big is coming very soon. Something big is coming really, really, really soon because Oda wants all of the characters back in one spot. So that's my takeaway from the beginning parts of the chapter. I think it's interesting that that's what the fire was actually for. Maybe it's for something totally different, but that does seem like the goal, to move all of these characters that have spread around back into the center. Now, going off of that, up top we have Yamato versus Kaido still going on. Yamato not doing a bad job, at least at the beginning of the chapter. We'll talk about the end of the chapter later. But Yamato not doing a bad job, clearly having trouble. Clearly, I don't think Kaido is having too much difficulty with her. So we even got to see them trading the same attacks. It's interesting to me that Yamato goes on and on about how she's Odin, but all of her attacks are Kaido's attacks. So what's really going on there? Obviously, I guess you can't really copy Odin's attacks because Odin is, I don't know if she ever actually got to see Odin fight, or if you just saw the boiling incident back in the Flower Capital. But it's interesting to me that she, denounces her father so much, yet at the same time, all of her moves, all of her fighting style, the club, everything, it's all based off of her father. Now, besides that, right? So Yamato and Kaido trading some blows. It's not going so well for Yamato. We get our flashback. Okay. I really like Kaido throughout this chapter because I think I've been talking about this for a little bit, but Kaido's dialogue, I think, has become, I don't know, I think Kaido's dialogue has just gotten sharper and sharper as Act 3 has gone on. I think he was dropping some really interesting quotes before and after the Luffy fight, and even what he said to Kinemon. But even just the way that he talks to Yamato, treats Yamato between both the current time and the flashback, it's not like he's dropping any sort of crazy insights or anything like that here, but I think just the way that Oda is portraying him, it's funny to me just because with Kaido and Luffy, there's such a nice, it felt like they were beginning to develop like a nice sort of rapport, a bit of mutual respect. Kaido talking about the more you laugh, the more etc. Kaido praising Luffy in many aspects. But with Kaido and Yamato, he's just he's a more blunt character than I thought when it comes to his child, because he is fully ready to just let Yamato die if Yamato does not, that's Kaido's whole thing, right? Make the character submit, make them follow him, right? So even when it comes to his own child, Yamato, Kaido's not cutting any corners. If you don't step in line and drop this Odin stuff, I don't care if you're 80 years old, I don't care if you're my son, daughter, whatever, I'll just leave you for dead. So I thought that that was really, really interesting. I thought that the line of just Yamato saying, please, when Kaido's having her sent into the cave, Yamato's saying, please, the samurai, they'll kill me, etc., because I'm your son, and Kaido just says, I thought you were Odin. I thought that was a really, really cold line. So I've really enjoyed Kaido's dialogue in recent chapters. I think generally since the rooftop period of One Piece, I think I've really, really been enjoying a lot of Kaido's dialogue, and the character has really, really grown on me. He's on his way to becoming my favorite villain. Obviously, there's a lot more that he needs to do to surpass previous villains, but he's on his way there, I guess. I think I'm very interested to see more of the character, and I'm kind of just very open at the point that just give me a flashback, give me some more scenes, and then you're probably going to be my favorite villain in the story so far, at least out of arc villains, so not counting characters like Blackbeard or Akainu that we've yet to really get to spend a significant amount of time with. Now, besides that, Yamato in the cave. So, again, big theory coming out Tuesday. I don't want to go into too much my full thoughts surrounding Shimotsuki Yoshimaru and the samurai in the cave. I had this theory for a while. I've been talking about it on stream, but what we saw in today's chapter kind of just adds into what I'm already believing. So I'm going to leave that at the moment. I'm not going to go too in-depth into what I think of all of these characters that are in the cave. Let's just talk about Shimotsuki Yoshimaru for the moment. I think it's Zoro's father, right? Can we don't have to, we're not beat around the bush anymore. I think it's Zoro's father, isn't it? It would be just weird if it's, Zoro's uncle or something like that, because then it feels arbitrary. It's okay, well then who was Zoro's father, right? It would just feel really weird if Zoro's father was no one important, but Zoro's uncle was. Clearly he's very obviously related to Zoro, right? Obviously related to Zoro, so the only question is what degree of separation, right? Is it dad? Is it uncle? Is it grandpa? Probably not. But I just think it'd be really weird if Zoro's dad, his actual dad, was just some random guy or unnamed guy, but at the same time, we get so much focus on Shimotsuki Yoshimaru as, Zoro's uncle, grandfather, whatever. I think I would go with the safer, simpler assumption, which is just that Oda's been on a kick of introducing fathers lately. Judge, right? We got Judge for Sanji and Whole Cake Island. Why would we not get, I don't think it's crazy to think that we're getting Shimotsuki Yoshimaru now in Wano. Now that Oda's kind of going back through and giving more backstory to the Straw Hats now that we're in the later parts of the story. So, interesting to me. I think out of Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, Sanji definitely got the short end of the stick as far as fathers go with Judge. Because Luffy gets Dragon, one of the coolest characters in existence. Zoro gets Shimotsuki Yoshimaru, who at the very least seems like a very, very significant samurai of Wano, right? And I guess royalty, nobility. And then Sanji gets Judge, who's just well, if I say the word for it, then I get demonetized. So, yeah, Judge is just not the coolest guy, not the nicest guy in the world. But, I don't know, interesting to me. I definitely think it's just, who would have thought it that we would have gotten the introduction to Zoro's father partway through the Battle of Onigashima. I just think that's pretty cool. I hope that this little flashback snippet that we're getting of Yamato is not quite over yet, because I do hope that, I don't know if it'll continue next chapter, or if it'll be one of those things where it segues into some other character, maybe it might segue into, let's say, when it's time to get the flashback or fill in the details of what happened with Shimotsuki Yoshimaru. That's when we might get the second piece of this, of what happened when all of them broke out. Or at the same time, it's possible that Oda just doesn't feel the need to fill in that, okay, Kaido beat these guys, basically. I like to think that we are going to get the second part of this, though, because it does seem like a very interesting little avenue was opened up in the past of, okay, what happened when these three mysterious samurai and Yamato broke out and tried to take on Kaido again. So I'm going to leave that again. I'll expand on that a little more on Tuesday's video, but whether or not in the canon of the story we're going to be getting more out of this flashback, it's hard to say. It did feel like the flashback sort of came to a close at the end of this chapter. That might just be how much Oda wants to share with us right now. But again, we'll see. I wouldn't be upset, I'll say, if next chapter we get a bit more action and then Yamato finishes the flashback. Now, as for Yamato, the character herself, it's taken time. I think when Yamato first introduced, really liked the character. over time started feeling, a little annoyed by her, very one-dimensional, very repetitive, not too much. And, I started kind of realizing how random it is that she's even being introduced right now, and how random it is that it seems like she's going to be a big part in Kaido's defeat, or at least the final battle. But, I appreciate the fact that we're getting this character a flashback, at least at this point in the story. I kind of did like the flashback. Nothing crazy, right? It's not a crazy flashback, but at least good to get some more insight on the character. When she's talking at the end about how, of course she has people that, I forget the exact dialogue, but it sounds like she's talking about the samurai that she met very briefly. Well, I guess they did make a bond over that period of time. It's just that for us as the reader, we only got to experience it very briefly. So there is something at least emotionally going on there for her. Can't say I'm quite hooked on the character and her place in the story right now, which again is very, very much shoehorned in. There's no amount of backstory that would make her not shoehorned in if this is the final battle. But I do appreciate that we are getting more out of this character, at least, so that we can care a little bit about who's fighting the final boss of the story at this point in time. And the final clash was really, really, really cool. I really, really love that spread. I think that just in terms of pure strength, Yamato is clearly up there as one of the strongest characters on Onigashima right now. Definitely more than many of us might have imagined early on when she first showed up. Lastly, I'll say if you watched that Seven Samurai video that I dropped a little while ago, you will notice again that, that bowl of rice scene, I guess, replayed itself once more here, this time inside the cave. The bowl of rice scene, I'm of course referencing being similar to what Luffy and Tama went through at the beginning of Act 1 of Wano. So if you haven't checked that video out, go check it out. It's an interesting little video. And the other point that I should bring up is also that just in general, how much hunger is being played up throughout Wano, hunger and lack of food, which is just a nice contrast with Oda first having Whole Cake Island, the island of overindulgence. Luffy's biggest problem there was initially overeating. He chose to starve himself at one point as a protest till Sanji came back, obviously, but before that, overeating was one of the big dangers that Luffy was facing, and just in general, the island of overindulgence, Big Mom who had everything she could possibly want to eat at her disposal, and she was being very picky, exclusively wanting a wedding cake. Just a lot of different little contrasting ideas going on in Whole Cake Island before getting to Wano. I like how Oda set that little thing up. So that's all for this video. Again, if you haven't checked out the second channel, I encourage you to do so. The link is in the description below, and a new video is coming out for tomorrow. And I will talk to you all next week. Look out for that theory video on this channel next Tuesday.